It's Di here from Refurbies. I'm here today to show you, we'll just give you a really quick demo on dry brushing. So I'm using PURECO products today, primarily chalk paint. I'm using the colour Meadow, the colour Morning. I've got Blush, Buttercup. I did forget to show you Peacock, but I'm using Peacock as well. And Snow, which is a bright white. I'm also using PURECO clear wax. I've got some Chuck's cloth to wipe off my excess paint off my brush, a brush for waxing, and a brush for applying for doing the dry brushing. So I purchased about 8 of these really old picture frames off Marketplace about a year ago. They're really nice quality frames. They're timber frames with a resin moulding on the front. I'm pretty sure it's resin, but the lady said they were, I don't know, about 40 years old. So they're nice quality pieces, and I was lucky to find as many matching as I did. I've painted these yesterday, so they were ready for today. This first one is painted in PURECO Peacock. Now, I'm using chalk paint for 2 reasons. The first reason is because chalk paint goes on anything, and other than giving these frames a good wash with sugar soap, there was no prep work done. I just painted the chalk paint on there. The second reason is chalk paint is a very textured paint, so it leaves a lot of brush marks, or you can leave a lot of brush marks. You can smooth it out if you want, but I wanted to leave brush marks, so the piece would have a lot more texture. Okay, so I'm going to get the Snow in the PURECO chalk paint. So first things first, I need to open up the paint and give it a very, very good stir and make sure that the paint is combined, all the pigments, all the whatever is in the paint are all combined together and working like they're supposed to be. I mentioned before I don't like to shake paint because I think it causes problems with your finish, so I always give it a really good stir. Now, you're not going to use a whole lot of paint to dry brush. You're going to, it's called dry brushing because you need to have, the brush is not wet with paint, it's dry. You dry off all the paint. So I just dip the very, very tip in the paint, and then I'm going to take it over to the cloth and I'm going to wipe pretty much the whole lot off. Like, you'll be like, no, why? But you just wipe it all off. And trust me, the bristles will hold enough product on there for you to do what you need to do. So very gently at first, I'm going to start brushing the brush over the raised detailed parts. And the paint that's on the brush is going to cling to the high points. It's also going to get into the grooves of your brush strokes, or the high points of your grooves. Unlike wax, which settles in the low points, when you dry brush, this hits the high points of whatever you're dry brushing and leaves paint on the high points. So you can see there's still a lot of paint on that brush, even though we pretty much wiped it dry. And you start off very, very lightly, and as the brush empties of product, you can go a little bit firmer, but be careful that you don't lay down too much paint because there's a lot more in that brush than you realise, even though you wiped it all off. The beauty of dry brushing these detailed parts versus waxing them is, if you make a mistake or you don't like it, you just paint over it. So you can't do that with the wax. You'd have to remove the wax completely to start again. You don't have to do that with the dry brushing. If you get to a point you're like, oops, I hate it, you can just paint over it, no hassle, no harm, and start again. So I'm just going to keep working my brush over this till I get it to a point that I'm happy with, and then just stop and leave it and let it dry. So this is what I came up with. So that's Snow dry brushed over Peacock. both of them are chalk paints, so they both will need to be sealed. And yeah, I think the effect is really beautiful. So we'll put this one away to dry and come back and do another one. Okay, so here's the second one, which is painted in morning chalk paint, and I think I'm going to use the peacock over the top of this one to dry brush with, because the white isn't going to pop like it did on the darker frame. So we're using a darker colour on the pale blue of morning. So I've dipped the tip of the brush in the paint and I'm wiping the excess off, and I will gently apply it to the picture frame, starting on the detailed bits and working my way around. So working around the frame again, concentrating on the high points of the detail and being careful not to be too heavy-handed with the brush, because remember, there is a lot more paint in that brush than you realise, and you can put too much paint down. But again, you can take it off and start again. So, but you can see here where I'm pointing out, that's where the dry brushing is hitting the brush strokes, the peaks in the brush strokes. This is one of the reasons why I use chalk paint. I'm not sure if you can see it really well on the camera, but I'll take some pictures at the end, some close-ups, so you can see what I mean about the texture that the chalk paint creates for the dry brushing to work with. So there you go, that's peacock over morning. Again, both of them are chalk paints. I've moved on to the one that was painted in blush. I actually did some dry brushing on this yesterday when I was filming, but I dry brushed peacock on it. It looked horrible, so I've painted blush over it again. So that's how easy it is to fix your mistakes. And now I'm going to dry brush some of the snow over it. So again, I'll load my brush, just the tip of my brush, and really, really brush it out. Get as much of the paint off as I can so it looks like it's wiping clear. And I'm going to try and do this so you can see it a bit better. Try and hold it up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So very gently at first, I'm going to brush over the detail parts. You can't really see very well what's happening, but I am laying paint down and it's hitting all the high points. And it's doing exactly what I want it to. It's just not really good on the camera, but I'll take, like I said, I'll take pictures after I'm done, and hopefully you'll be able to see how it looks. This is actually working out really well. It's settling nicely into the brush strokes. When I painted the blush on, I was deliberately painting it on rough, so I'd have a lot of texture. There's lots of, bumps and lumps and brush stroke marks and all sorts of things. So when I dry brush over those areas, the white paint's going to settle on the very high points of all those imperfections and have a lovely effect. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. So I just kept working at this until I got it the way I wanted to. And when I wanted to reload the brush, I didn't go into the paint. I just went into the bit that I'd wiped on the chucks just to get like a tiny little bit on there. Okay, so I'm going to keep working with this until I'm happy with it, and then after I'm done and it's dry, I'll put some wax over it, and then I will show you some close-ups of the finished picture frames. So forgive the crude cameramanship, if that's a word, but I'm just trying to show you just how pretty this is on camera by doing a close-up video. If you look closely, you can see all my brush strokes and how the white paint has hit the brush strokes and given it this lovely detail. It's really, really pretty. Hopefully you'll be able to see it better when I do some still shots. Oops, I forgot to record myself waxing the frames. But here I am wiping off the excess wax. There's not a lot of excess wax to wipe off because I didn't put a whole lot on, but here I am wiping it off. I just used a small stencil brush to apply the wax all over the frame. Wherever there was chalk paint, I waxed, because chalk paint is porous and it needs to be sealed. You can either seal it with top coat or wax, but if you want to retain that nice sort of matte chalky finish, wax really is lovely. And also if you want to buff it to a nice little sheen, you can do that with wax. But I just applied one coat of wax. These are going on a wall. They're not going to be heavily used or handled. So, yeah. Okay. And here they are all done. This first one was painted in Buttercup, and I used multiple colours to dry brush over this one, which I think is really pretty. Quite like that. The next one coming up is the one that was painted in Peacock, and I used snow over the top of that one. The next one is painted in Morning, which is a pale blue, and it had peacock over the top. This one is Meadow with snow dry brushed over the top. And the next one is my favourite, which was the blush one with the snow dry brushed over the top. So it turned out beautiful. I love this one. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was easy to follow. I'm sorry if I rambled, but there you go. Thanks for watching.